Good afternoon or good morning. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to talk to you about the CPIA, and I'll explain what that means in a minute, but this is very much about impact analysis, and I welcome everybody to the session today. We have, I think, almost 70 people that have signed up for today, so I know a number of you are here, and I welcome you, and thank you for taking this in live. For those that are watching us in post, we're going to send out the video to everybody, so no worries. And we'll ensure that you get this after the fact. I'll thank my colleague Jason in the background, who is helping out with this session today. So let's begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we're on today. And while we meet today on a virtual platform, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of lands that we call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility of improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Please join me in a moment of reflection to acknowledge the effect of residential schools and colonialism on Indigenous families and communities, and to consider how we are and can each, in our own way, try to move forward in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. So I'll welcome you to the Queen's University School of Business, and welcome to this program. This is the Certificate in Professional Impact Analysis. And I'll talk more about it, certainly, but this next session starts January 12th. You're not too early. In fact, there's an early bird special, if you will, or an early bird discount sign up for those that want to join us. And again, we're building the class for January. We're currently in the June to December cohort, and that session's well underway in its third module now, and we had a session that ran January to June earlier this year. So welcome to everybody. My name is Glenn Hollis. I've been with this program since its inception into the business school, and I've also had the opportunity to run a number of programs at the business school in the MBA format. So this is the only program, this Certificate in Professional Impact Analysis is the only program that measures good. And you'll know what that means from your own world. And we'll talk more about it in terms of the types of good or impact and why and how we can measure it. So the story or the background here is great brands, great organizations, companies, what have you, because we are looking at all of the kind of span of organizations, for-profit, not-for-profit, government on all three levels, NGOs, etc. And they all have a greater sense of purpose, these ones that stand out, and they can really, beyond what they do, it's about people, planet, and communities. And leaders like yourself in these organizations have a good sense of where to put investments. And usually that's in a place of doing good. And organizations that do that have a stronger sense of purpose, stronger sense of who they are. And for that reason, they're more successful on a number of levels. And this program is about doing more good. So we want to enable leaders like yourself to measure what they're doing. And once you measure something, you can understand, should we stop it? Should we continue it? Should we expand it? And ultimately, you need to report to stakeholders, interested parties that are part of or related to organizations. So we're going to talk about measuring good, rigorous, disciplined approach to measuring good or measuring impact. But we're also going to talk about doing that for the purpose of doing more of that good. So what are impact projects? You can think of it broadly in two terms, and impact investments fall into camps such as community and societal betterment programs or projects. And that could include CIBC's Run for the Cure, Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, or it could be very specific in terms of public sector or NGOs in governments of all different kinds. World Vision is an example, feeding children, etc. There's also business for good, which is a burgeoning area of for-profit. And this idea of looking at activities and projects or new products or services that organizations take on. And they also want to understand, can we do well with it, but can we also do good with it? And the good part of this is because they've got a lot of interested parties, employees, customers, certainly government, investors that are interested in what they're doing and how they're doing it. And there's a number of different examples that I'll share with you when we get to some of the specifics. So the big question is, how do you measure these good investments? But before that is really this, can you measure them? And this idea of tracking things beyond just customer satisfaction, employee engagement, financial acumen or performance. But few know how to credibly measure beyond proxies. And we're all pretty good at knowing that we're doing good or doing well in a particular impact investment. But the question becomes, how do you measure that beyond just the proxies for measure? The number of people served, or the meals that are sent out, or the amount of green steel we build? How do you measure impacts into society, environment, and wider economic impacts? So the good news with this program is you can, and you can look at, and we provide best practices, tools, templates, case studies, looking at the ROI of different impact projects. And this is a growing field. Increasingly, you're seeing more and more organizations, for profit and not for profit, taking on the role, building the role, creating the role of Chief Impact Officer. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into the program and the session today. I might say, remind you, throw anything you want in the Q&A as far as questions or thoughts that you've got. Happy to answer those at the end. We've designed this to be no more than half an hour, and lots of time, and respectful of your time, certainly, as you join us today. So why is it important to measure impact? Well, we're pretty good at measuring a whole bunch of things, but really what we want to do is, we've got increasing demand to do that, and we also want to be able to really account for the things that we do to our different stakeholders. I mentioned community, like customers, employees, suppliers, shareholders, influencers of different kinds. And there's a growing need to be able to provide quantitative proof of what you're doing, as far as we said we'd do this, or we think this impact project program is going to do this, or this particular business for good service or product. But are we indeed doing that? And when we do that, we know that we can do more of that. So in comparison, we're pretty good at measuring financial accounting and management. And we do that for compliance and reporting, but we also do that strategically. We want to make better decisions. And you're seeing more and more demand on the impact side of businesses. So we want to arm you with the same capability you run alongside financial returns or any kind of reports that you run, is this idea of transparency and rigor when it comes to measuring impact and impact projects. So how do we do it? Well, the program that we've put together in a very methodical way, I'll talk about the faculty that are backing this, because this is truly a partnership of both the economics department at Queen's as well as the business school. But it's done through this professional impact analysis program, and really arming the chief impact officers of tomorrow. The content and delivery is set out like this, and I'll go into some detail. 3 modules, all of it is designed over 6 months, but it's designed to be incredibly flexible. You're going to stay where you are in your markets, your own hometowns, and your companies, your organizations. It's virtual, and the intent of this is to really provide you the background information, the details, the content. And ultimately, it's brought to life through capstone sessions. These are live but virtual sessions, and each of the 3 modules has a full day live capstone day. And this is designed to complement the content that you'll receive from the recorded lectures. There's also the opportunity every week, optional, to connect with the professors live, to ask questions, to talk about the content, and also just to talk about current affairs and activities. In fact, we've had a number of sessions, as you can imagine, on tariffs and the impact of tariffs on business, organizations, impact projects, whatever they might be. And at the end of the 3 modules, at the end of this wonderfully laid out and flexible 6 months, is the final exam where you are certified as the impact analyst. So the CPIA approach is to arm future chief impact officers with these different aspects: identifying, quantifying, analyzing, integrating, navigating, looking at and evaluating risk and uncertainty. Reporting is a critical element as well. The program, as I mentioned, is delivered and really designed and delivered. We have 3 professors that are actively involved: Dr. Elspeth Murray, who is a strategist and professor at the business school, and Dr. Bauman Kashi and Dr. Chris Cotton, who work at the Queen's Economic Department and have been putting together this program for a number of years. And we've only recently, since last year, brought this into the business school and really kind of put gas on a very interesting fire and created the program that exists today. And we continue to improve upon it as we go through each of the cohorts. So let's talk a little bit about this Chief Impact Officer toolbox that you'll learn. It's very much broken into the three modules: measuring impact, looking at quantifying and measuring impact. Module 2 is impact frameworks. Again, 4 lectures, capstone. This is about identifying impact, valuing it, timing of it, integrating it into perspectives and pathways. And then the final module at the end of the 6 months is looking at impact analysis, inflation, risk, financing, and then really the strategy of how do you communicate it. It's one thing to know what you're measuring. It's another thing to be able to measure it. It's another thing to measure it. But ultimately, telling a good story, telling the compelling and interesting story about what you're doing within the impact space is really the core of this, because it's no good to understand all of this, have the key capability to glean impact and measure of impact and success and good without being able to tell a credible and compelling story at the end of this. And that's really the thrust and the kind of culmination of this program. So the delivery model, as I mentioned, there's prep material that advances that you've got in place before. And this is all included in the cost we'll talk about. But the prep material, again, none of this is designed to be overwhelming. None of this is for mathematicians or economists. It's a program that's easily understood, easily digestible, but it really arms people with a key understanding of impact measurement. The modules, there's a lecture that's released each week, even mini lectures that ultimately make up this 3-hour lecture. It could be, parts of lectures that are doled out over that week. You watch them, you rewatch them, you've got access online to them. And then at the end of those 4 lectures, there's a break and then there's a capstone day. Full day on a Friday. Well in advance, you'll understand what the schedule is. But you're able to meet with your colleagues. There's networking involved. You are working with coaches, with the faculty, and you bring to life all of the content that you learned over those last 4 weeks. You bring it to life with cases that you'll do during that live capstone day. And then the module repeats again into the second module with different content, new lectures, all online, capstone to bring it to life through cases and networking and coaches. And then the final module, 4 lectures, capstone at the end of that. And then, of course, you've got the exam at the end of the 6 months. So it's all asynchronous, all online, and there's wonderful, lively discussions that occur weekly, optional. The program cost, the 3 modules are $7,500 plus tax, and this is designed, you can spread this out over 6 months, $2,500 per module, and it includes everything that I mentioned: materials, lectures, content, final exam, access to the faculty, the capstone days, coaching, all of those things. You don't need to pay it all at once. You can pay a module before you start the program and then really spread out those modules over the 6 months. We do have discounts available to those that bring 3 or more from their organization. We have a number of those groups of 3 or more in the cohorts that exist right now, and we had during January to June. So we take off $2,000 per student. Scholarships are available for Indigenous students, First Nation students, and this is designed to be flexible. You'll get a T2202 at the end of this, write off the cost of this against your income, and full certification as well. And as I mentioned, in discussions with the faculty, we have an early bird discount. So sign up by December 1st, really over the next 3 weeks, and you get the program for only $6,000 plus tax. And again, that same spreading out over 6 months where you can pay for the first module can occur. But again, we wanted to make this accessible. We're seeing great interest among both not-for-profit and for-profit, and we're delighted to continue to build these cohorts, these groups, these classes. And I know you'll enjoy the networking part of this as well. And we do hold additional networking sessions. I brought chief impact officers to webinars that we've had, coffee chats, fireside chats with the faculty and with other people that work in different capacities in impact measurement. We bring those to really develop networking as part of this program. So let me talk a little bit about impact cases. And again, throw any questions you've got in the Q&A. Here's an example of Coca-Cola switching to social plastic. They really wanted to understand, as we think about moving to recycled plastic, how is it financially viable? Is it financially viable? Is it socially justifiable? And is it feasible? Can we spread it out to our different bottling groups and partners? RBC, ESG stocks, we've all heard about that. Now, are they actually getting a social return on investments? And with that, is it defensible? Is it something they could bring forward as part of these stock and investment portfolios? And if not, what additional information is needed? What data is needed to really prove out that these are stocks that are focused on environment, on social, on governance in a way that it makes sense? Tourmaline Oil was interested in diversifying away from gas-powered production machinery, and they wanted to understand the GHG impact. Are we going to get net benefit from the greenhouse emissions offsets? And also, is it financially and economically viable for us when we think of the impact of that? The World Health Organization, to go into the NGO space, was really looking at food safety and advocating for investments into that infrastructure. They wanted to measure improvements, they wanted to understand costs, and they wanted to understand the benefits as far as spreading it out to various parts of the world that are desperately in need of food safety infrastructure. So measuring that and the impact of that was critical. Tim Hortons Children's Foundation, again, looking at the camps, the Tim Hortons Children's Foundation. And again, I talked about proxy measures. Originally, they measured this under really the umbrella of, are we sending economically disadvantaged children to camp, the 6 camps across Canada and the US. Are now wonderful to increase those numbers to get more and more of those economically disadvantaged children to camp. But are we moving the needle in a different way, in a demonstrable, empirical way when it comes to what are they doing with that experience? Are they going on to finish high school? Do they go on to post-secondary? And it really, anchored the question to measure that, to understand, do we do more of that, build another camp, send more kids? Are we getting that benefit, that impact? Or should we put the money into other aspects, Timbits hockey, Smile Cookie, whatever? The business side of Tim Hortons also looked at impact projects from a business for good. When we look at how we procure coffee from areas like Brazil, should we be part of a fair trade program like Starbucks is and others? Or should we build our own coffee partnership program where we're actually getting right to the small farmers, those farmers that have a hectare or less, helping them with their development when it comes to understanding better farming practices, better irrigation practices, education in the community, education when it comes to their children. Fair hiring practices is another example of business for good, and the sustainable distribution of the supply chain approach when it comes to a fleet of trucks. Should we convert that all to electric and a massive fleet that crisscrosses Canada and the US? But is that something as a business project we can look at the good side of it? Ocean Steel, one of the students in the MBA program that I ran was from Ocean Steel, and he was a senior executive that had more and more demand from his customers for green steel. So interestingly enough, it really became a question of is that going to actually help us from a business standpoint? There's no shame in doing well, but is it going to do good? Is it going to offset greenhouse gas emissions? Is it going to be something that we can sell to our supplier, to our customers? And is it actually going to have a net benefit in the world? And that was an important measure, to have both sides of that ledger. So who should attend the program? We're coming to the end of the session today, and feel free to throw questions. But I want to just, like I say, anchor the idea that this is about today for those of you that are working in the space of impact and impact measurement, but it's also about building leaders of tomorrow. One of the impact officers that we've had as part of our coffee chats, fireside chats, and networking sessions was Louise Kent, and she's the Chief Impact Officer at Mighty Hum. And she was really talking about her journey. What was her pathway from an education and from a career building standpoint? And we want to arm you to ensure that we are creating disciplined, empirically based measuring impact analysts, but really impact officers, chief impact officers of tomorrow, because it's a burgeoning part of business, whether it's for profit or not for profit. And as Dr. Kashi, one of your professors, talks about, the need to build this foundational knowledge to choose the most relevant framework is critical. Understanding the discipline, the formula, the sequence, the events that take place in terms of measuring it, beyond just proxies of we think we're doing good with this project. We want to manage, monitor, measure, and we want to understand and report the impact of a particular project. So we're at the end. I'll leave my email there. Feel free to reach out to me directly. Go to the website. You can easily access all of the information in much more detail than what I've shared today. This is designed to be a quick overview and really to try and help you understand, is the project or is the program right for you? But also to really enlighten you as to this burgeoning part of business, whether it's for profit or not for profit. And I also wanted to share the early bird discount that we've got in place right now. And I'd be delighted to answer any questions, or as I mentioned, feel free to reach out to me directly. And those of you that may be listening to this in post, as we're going to send it out to everybody, we absolutely are interested in having you part of the program. The next cohort starts January 12th, and we'd be delighted to have you in the program. And also meet with the faculty. And be invited to some of these networking sessions that we've got planned through December before the next class starts in January. So again, thank you for your time. I truly appreciate it. And thank you to Jason in the background. Don't think there's any questions at this time, and that's no problem. Hopefully I've answered everything, but feel free, as I say, my email's there. Reach out to me and I'd be delighted to help with any information. And thanks again for attending live today. And for those of you that are listening to this as we've sent it out, and we'll send out to everybody, thank you. I appreciate it. And have a good day.